Let me tell you something. Peace is not passive. Peace is not weakness. Peace is power. It is a divine strategy in a chaotic world. When you make up your mind to train your thoughts, to discipline your emotions, to guard your inner stillness, you are stepping into a level of strength that hell itself cannot shake. See, everybody wants success. Everybody wants joy. Everybody wants purpose. But what we often forget is that without peace, all of that gets distorted. You can have a palace and still be tormented. You can have applause and still be anxious. But when you have peace, real, anchored, battle-tested peace, you become unbothered by the noise around you because you know who you are within you. You have to understand that your peace is expensive. Stop giving it away cheap. Every time you allow someone's opinion to snatch your joy, you've given them power that was never theirs to begin with. Every time you lose sleep over someone's drama, you're investing your energy in a story that's not even yours to carry. When you are truly walking in peace, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't even have to explain yourself every time you're misunderstood. Why? Because peace doesn't scream. Peace stands. It doesn't argue. It knows. This is why you must train your mind, because the enemy doesn't always come after your body. Sometimes he comes after your focus, after your thoughts, after your stability. If he can disturb your peace, he can derail your purpose. So training your mind is not optional. It's survival. You have to wake up every day and decide, I will not be shaken. I will not be distracted. I will not allow outside noise to disturb my internal clarity. And make no mistake about it, this is not something that happens overnight. You won't always feel strong, but you have to keep choosing peace even when offense knocks, when gossip rises, when life pushes you to respond in rage. That's when you train. That's when you grow. That's when you build that mental muscle. Because hear me, if the enemy can get you to react, he can steal your rhythm. But when you stay calm in the storm, you confuse the forces that were sent to break you. Sometimes people will come into your life just to poke you, to provoke you, to try you, just to see if you still bleed where you used to. But when you've trained your mind, you can smile and say, I remember when that would have gotten to me, but I'm not there anymore. That's not pride. That's progress. That's power. You don't need to retaliate to be strong. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to clap back to be wise. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is remain silent, because your peace speaks for itself. Your peace says, I'm not for sale. I'm not easily moved. I'm not at the mercy of moods and mess. And let me tell you something. Peace attracts favor. Peace unlocks vision. Peace makes room for strategy, discernment, and clarity. When you protect your peace, you're protecting your ability to hear from God, to stay focused on your assignment, and to walk in power with your head held high and your heart still whole. So no, you don't have to be unbothered because you're numb. Be unbothered because you're trained. Be unbothered because you're air-free. Be unbothered because your peace is no longer on the market. People will test you. They will poke at your patience, press on your insecurities, and play games with your emotions. Not because they hold any real power over you, but because they want to see if you know the power you carry. And if you don't train your mind to stay rooted, You'll find yourself constantly reacting, constantly explaining, constantly drained by battles that never should have started. You've got to understand, every reaction costs you something. Every time you allow someone to hijack your peace, you're handing over the keys to your emotional vehicle. And some of us have been running on empty because we let too many unqualified drivers steer our thoughts. You don't have to attend every argument. You don't have to answer every insult. You don't have to dance with every distraction. People can come with their chaos, but that doesn't mean you have to let it inside your atmosphere. You train your mind by learning to say, that doesn't belong to me. You train your mind by recognizing that someone else's opinion is not your identity. Their bad mood is not your mission. Their confusion is not your crisis. The moment you stop reacting to everything is the moment you start walking in mastery. This is what it means to stay unbothered, not untouched, not unaware, but unmoved. Because you've developed a filter that keeps foolishness from finding a seat in your spirit. When you know who you are, when your mind is anchored in truth, you don't chase validation, you don't flinch at criticism, and you don't crumble under shade. You learn to pause before you respond. You learn to breathe before you break. And sometimes you learn to walk away. Not because you're weak, but because your peace is worth more than your pride. Let me tell you, maturity is when you stop giving people backstage access to your emotions. Everybody doesn't deserve to know what gets to you. Everybody doesn't deserve to be that close to your triggers. If someone can ruin your day with one word, one post, one look, then it's time to check not just them, but your own emotional boundaries. It's time to say, I'm no longer available for drama. I'm no longer available for manipulation. I'm no longer available for conversations that drain my destiny. Training your mind means taking back ownership of your mood. You don't wait for peace to find you. You build it. You structure your day around it. You breathe through it. And when someone shows up trying to pull you into a whirlwind of offense, you recognize it for what it is, a distraction from your growth. Because if the enemy can't destroy you, he'll settle for disturbing you. But not anymore. Not when your mind is trained. Not when your eyes are set. Not when your spirit is guarded. Some people thrive on chaos. They don't want peace. They want company in their confusion. But you've been called higher. You've been called to a place where your emotions no longer control you, where your reactions no longer betray your progress. When you stop letting people push your buttons, you start walking in divine discipline. That's when you begin to see the difference between being emotionally alive and emotionally available. Not everything deserves a response. Not everyone deserves access to the place you fought to protect. So let them talk. Let them assume. Let them wonder. You're not here to please people. You're here to preserve your peace and fulfill your purpose. Because the more focused you become, the less entertained you are by foolishness. You don't owe anybody a reaction. You owe yourself peace. And when your peace becomes your priority, you become unbothered. Not because you're avoiding conflict, but because you've been elevated above it. There comes a time in your growth when you realize that peace and elevation are connected. You cannot rise while clinging to what's been pulling you down. You cannot move forward while carrying the weight of what you've outgrown. That's why some people, some environments, and even some conversations start to feel uncomfortable. Not because you're changing for the worse, but because you're growing into a version of you that doesn't need that noise anymore. And when God begins to elevate you, it often requires separation, not as punishment, but as preparation. You have to train your mind to be okay with letting go. That's part of staying unbothered. Not everything or everyone deserves a lifelong seat in your life. And some of the resistance you feel is not from the enemy. It's the friction of holding on to what God already told you to release. You can't keep asking for peace while surrounding yourself with chaos. You can't ask for clarity while entertaining confusion. Peace has a cost, and often that cost is separation. It means stepping away from what's familiar in order to step into what's fruitful. You see, noise will always try to hold you. Familiar voices, old habits, unhealed wounds, they'll all whisper, don't go too far. Don't change too much. Don't forget where you came from. But when you're serious about your growth, you learn that remembering where you came from is not the same as staying stuck in it. Some of the people who once walked with you can no longer run with you. Not because they're bad people, but because they're not built for where you're going. And staying unbothered means you don't have to explain your shift. You don't have to defend your decision to protect your peace. You don't have to feel guilty for choosing growth over comfort. When God starts calling you higher, He'll start stripping away distractions. He'll start pruning relationships. He'll start disconnecting you from circles that fed your survival mode but can't support your purpose. And if you're not careful, you'll mislabel the pruning as rejection, the quiet season as loneliness, and the separation as abandonment. But what looks like isolation is often insulation. It's protection. It's God saying, I need to train your mind in silence so you won't be shaken by the noise later. So stop apologizing for needing space. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop holding on to connections that keep your spirit tired. You weren't designed to be tethered to toxicity just because you've got history with it. The peace you're looking for is found in the release. And when you train your mind to stop resisting separation, you start realizing just how much energy you've been wasting trying to carry what no longer fits. Don't let guilt keep you bound. Don't let loyalty keep you low. There's a difference between being faithful and being stuck. Faithfulness serves purpose. Stuckness serves fear. And when you've trained your mind to recognize the difference, you stop confusing noise for loyalty and chaos for connection. You start making decisions based not on who's been there the longest, but on what brings peace, purpose, and alignment into your life. Elevation is not glamorous. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's misunderstood. But it's always worth it, because on the other side of that separation is clarity. On the other side of that release is freedom. And on the other side of that discomfort is a peace that no storm, no critic, no betrayal can touch. Stay unbothered not because you don't feel, but because you finally learned it. I can't carry everything and still climb, so I choose peace. I choose release. I choose to go higher. Reacting is easy. Anybody can do that. It takes no discipline to snap back, no maturity to fire off a message, no growth to match energy with energy. That's the language of survival, not mastery. But when you've trained your mind, when you've built your peace brick by brick, you understand that not every moment demands a response. Sometimes the greatest display of strength is restraint. Sometimes victory looks like saying nothing and walking away with your joy still intact. You have to realize that every time you react out of emotion, you're giving someone access to your spirit. You're allowing them to pull you into their storm. And if you don't train your mind to rule your spirit, you'll end up spending your days fighting fires that were never yours to put out. You can't build your future while always cleaning up emotional debris from yesterday. You have to choose. Do you want to be reactive or do you want to be powerful? When your mind is trained, your spirit doesn't jump at every provocation. You see what's happening, you feel what's rising in you, but you don't feed it. That's where the real power is. To feel the weight of offense and still choose peace. To hear the insult and still walk in honor. To be misjudged, misunderstood, and mistreated, yet still keep your head clear and your heart clean. That's not weakness, that's discipline. And that kind of discipline isn't developed in public. It's built in private. In the quiet moments when you're tempted to retaliate. In the midnight hours when the wound is fresh and your pride is loud. But when you've done the work, when your mind has been trained to rise above the noise, you no longer give people the satisfaction of seeing you sweat. You don't need the last word. You don't need to win the argument. You just need to win your peace. Because here's the truth. Your reacting might feel good in the moment, but it rarely leaves you whole. It steals your focus. It disrupts your rhythm. And most of all, it distracts you from the real battle, which isn't between you and them. It's between your potential and your past. You don't have time to fight battles that don't build you. You don't have energy to waste on people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You've got too much vision, too much calling, too much peace on the line to let your emotions lead the way. There's a maturity that comes when you realize not everything deserves your energy. You stop asking, what did they say? And start asking, is this worth my peace? You stop needing to prove your point because you've already proven your growth. You stop fighting for attention and start standing in your identity. And when your mind is trained to rule your spirit, you become unshakable. Not because storms don't come, but because you no longer hand your power to every gust of wind. This isn't about being numb. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about knowing that your peace is more valuable than your pride. It's about living in such alignment that your reactions are filtered through wisdom, not woundedness. That's what it means to rule your spirit. That's what it means to be unbothered. You don't let emotions sit in the driver's seat. You don't let offense control the narrative. You breathe, you assess, and you choose peace over performance. So let them think you're soft. Let them think you're quiet. Let them think you've bowed out. What they don't see is that while they're busy reacting, you're busy rising. You're too focused to be pulled back into pettiness, too trained to waste words on battles already beneath you. You've done the work. Now walk in it. Stay unbothered. Stay disciplined. Stay powerful. Boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. They are not signs of arrogance. They are signs of self-respect. When you train your mind to stay unbothered, one of the first things you learn is how to draw the line between what serves your peace and what sabotages it. Some of us are exhausted not because we're doing too much, but because we're tolerating too much, and you can't walk in power while constantly entertaining what weakens you. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, by what you respond to, and by what you let slide. If they keep crossing the line, maybe it's because you never clearly drew it. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about deciding what gets to come in. You have to stop feeling guilty for saying no. No to drama. No to guilt trips. No to energy that drains instead of builds. A trained mind knows that protecting your peace is not optional. It's strategic. Because where there is no boundary, there is no clarity. And where there is no clarity, there is confusion. And confusion is the enemy of focus. Some people won't like your boundaries. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better. But the truth is, growth always offends those who are comfortable with access they never earned. You're not being difficult. You're being deliberate. You're not being mean. You're being wise. When you stop showing up for what disrespects your spirit, you give yourself permission to show up fully where you're valued. You can't train your mind while leaving your heart open to chaos. You can't reach higher while constantly being pulled down by emotional obligations. You must choose who gets your time, who gets your energy, and who gets your presence. Not based on history, but based on harmony. There are people who will keep draining you as long as keep handing them the cup. And it's not their job to protect your peace. It's yours. There's a difference between compassion and codependency. Just because you care doesn't mean you have to carry. Just because you're available doesn't mean you're accessible. And just because they're loud doesn't mean they're right. A trained mind knows when to engage and when to exit. You don't have to argue. You don't have to convince. You don't even have to explain. You just need to guard the gate. Because when you let the wrong energy in, it takes double the work to get it out. Boundaries aren't about building walls to keep people away. They're about building bridges that lead you back to yourself, to your peace, to your clarity, to your assignment. And let me tell you, when you finally put up the right boundaries, you'll start breathing again. You'll stop dreading conversations. You'll stop second-guessing your worth. You'll stop feeling like you're always losing yourself just to keep the peace with others. Because now your peace includes yo. It's okay to be unavailable for certain things. It's okay to take a step back. It's okay to say, that doesn't work for me anymore. You're not obligated to keep watering dead plants. You're allowed to outgrow the version of you that used to say yes to everything. Growth demands better boundaries. Peace requires a perimeter. Elevation needs space. So don't just train your mind to stay calm. Train your life to support that calm. Structure your world in a way that aligns with your peace. That means your relationships, your routines, your responsibilities. If it doesn't bring peace, it doesn't get priority. You're not here to be everyone's solution at the expense of your own sanity. Stay unbothered because you've set the standard. Stay unbothered because you've defined the boundary. Stay unbothered because your peace is protected by a gate that only wisdom has the key to. Your mind is the battlefield, not your job. not your relationships, not your bank account. It starts right between your ears. If you don't win there, you won't win anywhere. That's why training your thoughts is not a suggestion. It's a requirement. Because you can't walk in peace while entertaining thoughts that constantly pull you into panic. You can't be unbothered if your mind is constantly running scenarios, replaying offenses, predicting disappointments. Your life moves in the direction of your dominant thoughts. So if you want peace on the outside, you have to start with peace on the inside. It's not just about avoiding people. It's about confronting patterns. You can block someone and still be tormented by their words. You can walk away from conflict and still carry it in your head. This is why thought management is the key. You have to stop letting every thought have a seat at your table. Just because a thought A arrives doesn't mean it deserves your attention. When you've trained your mind, you start filtering what stays and what goes. You take your thoughts captive, not the other way around. And let me tell you, your mind is not a trash bin. It's not a place for leftover fear, discarded opinions, or recycled trauma. Your mind was made to carry vision, not clutter. And too many of us are walking around distracted, confused, discouraged, not because life is overwhelming, but because our thoughts are undisciplined. You have to speak to your mind. You have to declare, I don't have room for that. I'm not going to sit in anxiety today. I'm not going to replay what they said. I'm not going to assume the worst. I'm going to think higher. The most powerful people are not the loudest ones in the room. They're the quietest in their minds. You know why? Because they've done the work to clear out the noise. They've learned to interrupt negative thought cycles before they spiral. They've learned to question their thoughts instead of being controlled by them. Just because your mind who says something doesn't mean it's true. A trained mind knows how to discern the difference between truth and fear, between intuition and insecurity. Peace is a mindset, not just a mood. It's not something you wait for. It's something you cultivate. You create it by what you allow in your mental space. What are you listening to? Who are you listening to? What are you rehearsing in your head day after day? You can't say you want peace and keep feeding your mind worry. You can't pray for clarity and keep gesting confusion. You have to align your inputs with your intentions. This is why stillness is powerful. Reflection is powerful. Quiet moments aren't empty. They're where you do the mental maintenance. It's where you take inventory and ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it healthy? Is it even human? Because not every thought you think comes from you. Some thoughts are planted by old wounds, generational patterns, fear-based culture. And if you don't examine them, you'll start building your life around lies. The good news is you have authority over your mind. You can renew it. You can rewire it. You can shift from survival thinking to peace thinking. But it takes practice. It takes awareness. It takes a daily decision to say, I choose peace. Not just once. Not just when it's easy. But every time the wrong thought tries to settle in, you replace it with something true. You build your peace on purpose. So stay unbothered, not just by people, but by the thoughts that once had the power to wreck your day. Stay unbothered because your mind is no longer a playground for fear. Stay unbothered because you've trained your mind to obey your mission, not your mood. This is not just peace. This is power, and now it's yours to keep.